All right, hello all. This is Brother Telepathy. I'm Micah. This is my brother Graham, and we are here to discuss Travis Hunter. Hot topic in the draft conversation. Obviously, a lot of people's number one prospect. My personal number one prospect. Graham, you got any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, he's one or two for pretty much everybody for the most part. So, doesn't really matter too much where you have him. He's one of the best players in this draft class. He's definitely one of the more interesting players to come out in the draft in several years, just for pure sake of his versatility. And one thing I'll go ahead and just start video by saying that I don't think enough people are talking about is the fact that he's as good as he is at both positions. There was definitely some talk at some point where it was like, oh, he's just playing a lot of snaps, right? No, this guy is truly very, very good at both positions. So
Yeah.
certainly a conversation to have, where is he a corner? Is he a receiver? Could he potentially play both? We're not exactly sure at this point.
And
So
yeah, we're not here to beat a dead horse. Everybody knows Travis Hunter, so we're just gonna go right into it. Me and Graham, although we think alike in many aspects, we maybe differ a little bit on this subject in particular.
yeah, why don't you
I'm
get your stance first?
yeah, we'll do that in like debate style, not debate style, but yeah, I'll give my stance first. I think Travis Hunter's a corner through and through. I think that um, I don't even see a plausible reason why you should play him at receiver. I think that him playing DB makes all the sense in the world. His instincts in zone coverage in particular, he can be sticky in man. He's long. Obviously has good size to him. He's got as I already mentioned, the instincts of a receiver in a DB build. I think it just makes a lot of sense for him to play DB in the league. But that's kind of how I feel about it. And I don't think there should even be a conversation to be a receiver when you can be the number one DB in the NFL, if that makes sense. So that's kind of how I think about the conversation. Graham.
Yeah, so that's interesting because I certainly am opposed to the fact that I do think it is a conversation to be had. I think that, you know, again, if he wasn't so good as a receiver, I don't know if we'd be having this conversation, but obviously I did a breakdown video on a lot of his games and some various clips as him at receiver. He's very, let's just start with positives, technically sound on both sides of the ball. You already talked about it as a corner. I mean, he can be sticky in man coverage because of his length. I think that's going to be a benefit to him. Obviously, has incredible instincts within zone coverage as well. I saw somebody on Twitter talking about how he's just really, really good at kind of playing that cover two, like high, lowing, kind of the two receiver concepts there. If you run like a smash concept or
You stick
something.
him in the flats, and he'll sit on the corner route
He
100%.
will.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So he's, obviously really good at that. Obviously, we already talked about in a previous video his elite ball skills in addition to all that. So I think there are a lot of arguments to be made for him being a corner, but I do think it's definitely worth having the conversation in him at receiver. I think that, again, he's got a lot of room to grow as a receiver too. And so, I think when I watch his game a little bit, I talked about it briefly in my video, but he kind of reminds me a little bit of Justin Jefferson. And I'm not saying that he's going to be as good of a receiver as Justin Jefferson. I'm not even necessarily saying he should play full time receiver. But when you look at his contested catch ability, when you look at his savviness in route running, he's just a smooth athlete. And I think, again, those things kind of remind me a little bit of Justin Jefferson. So I know you might have some feelings on that considering you're the Vikings fan, but
Yeah,
I see
definitely.
the parallels.
Yeah, no, I think you're honestly exactly right because I think at the end of the day, Justin Jefferson is a technical receiver. He's not a physical specimen. He's not a Jamar Chase where he's a 4-3 rack guy. Like, Travis Hunter is equally as technically skilled as someone like Justin Jefferson coming out of the draft, if not more. I think he's super polished. I think that he has wide receiver abilities certainly, and I think that technically he's just at the end of the day he's a football player. He knows what he's doing on both sides of the ball. Super smart, incredibly twitched up athlete. We talked about this earlier. I think he's much more of a twitchy athlete than than like a natural athlete. Natural athlete in like long
Like a
speed
burner.
yeah, exactly, like a long speed type of guy. Way more twitchy, way more sideline to sideline, springy. Those are some adjectives I think of. But I just think that those certain skills make sense as a DB and less as a receiver. Although I think it can succeed as a receiver, as you already mentioned, Justin Jefferson. I think that if you can put those skills into a DB frame where you made the joke earlier on the channel where you play defense for reasons because you can't catch. I think if you have somebody with his cover skills combined with those athletic or the twitchy traits that you have like a receiver would have in a DB's body, that can translate to being the best guy in the league. And I really do believe that he could end up being the premier defensive back in the NFL.
So it sounds like the crux of your argument is this guy has CB1 potential in the NFL, whereas receiver, do you maybe feel like he doesn't have that same type of ceiling?
I feel like the ceiling, is definitely lower as a receiver. Yeah, DB1 for sure. Just to answer that, I think he could be the best. He could dethrone the Pat Surtain, who obviously is coming off the Defensive Player of the Year. I think he could be the best. But for receiver, I don't really know what his ceiling is as a receiver. I think that he's super skilled. Obviously, we've already talked about it. Off the top of my head, I mean, I'm not taking obviously the main guys. Like I'm not taking him over Justin Jefferson or anything. But I think of like Terry McLaurin or like Drake London, like Devonta Smith. Do I take him over any of those guys? Probably not. Obviously, there's got to be some projection going on in there. But do you have any thoughts on that?
See, I would disagree with that. I think that he's certainly got top of the NFL receiver potential and DB potential. So I think, again, there's a lot of room for him to grow in both areas because he has dedicated so much time to both. So I think that I am with you in the sense that let's really hone in on that. And I think a lot of it is it's just maybe not plausible in the NFL to go at the rate he's been going at, playing both sides of the field fully.
Yeah,
he's
definitely
obviously
not.
I mean, he's kind of fully leaned into that at the combine, so kudos to him on that. But I think that with the regiment of an NFL schedule, I think the amount of preparation that goes into playing at a high level, I'm just not sure it's plausible for him to do both. And so,
Right.
And to that point, I will agree with you that I think, and other people have made this point, so this is nothing groundbreaking, but it's going to be much easier to be a full-time cornerback and then moonlight or play, whatever, let's call it 15 snaps a game at receiver versus the other way around where he's full-time receiver and then playing a few packages on defense. That's just not quite as realistic. And, we've seen that before, but again, we've not seen really a player like Travis Hunter who does it both so well as, in addition to that. So.
Yeah, and I mean, kind of expanding on the point you made is what does that even look like? Like, obviously, people say it is like it's easier to play, a few packages on offense than on defense. Like, but in reality, and I'm agreeing with your point, what does that even look like on defense? Like, what package do you make to put him in on the defensive side of the ball? Do you put him in for third and long and that's it? I mean, I guess that's a possibility, but like, I feel like you're not utilizing him to his fullest potential. If you do that, I feel like that's like how often are you really in third and long? Maybe like 3 times a game.
Yeah.
So, I just don't see, even practically speaking, a way that you can make him a primary receiver, secondary corner, as opposed to the opposite.
I think, too, if you do operate under what we were talking about, where he plays full-time corner and then does play receiver some too, I think just sheer, defense being able to key in the fact that he's in the game on offense, I think could set up other people to succeed as well, just because obviously that would cause a lot of attention. Hey, number 12 is in the game now. Like, we got to focus on that, but at the same time, it doesn't necessarily mean the ball doesn't have to go to him on that play. So I think there is a lot of, versatility there as well. But I mean, you're talking about just, again, I think the sheer number of snaps itself is fully impressive in and of itself, but I don't think people are realizing how good this guy was on both sides of the field. And maybe people are, but I don't know if it gets talked about enough. It's the snap count plus the fact that he's as good as he is at both. I mean, in my opinion, if he was purely a receiver, he'd be wide receiver 1 for me. If he's purely a corner, he's cornerback 1 for me. So, I mean, I think you just don't get that often.
Yeah, and honestly, I wouldn't even disagree with you that he would be in that wide receiver 1 contention. It's just in my mind, I don't even see that as a possibility. And obviously, I mean, there's room to be proven wrong. Like we've seen the Browns yesterday come out and say they view him as a receiver first. So it's going to depend on need and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say the last point maybe I'll make on that per se. I don't know if there's anything else specifically you want to cover with this, but one of the last things I'll say here is that I do think it's an interesting conversation when you look at how he stacks up in other draft classes at different positions. I mean, if you take a look at corner, I don't know if you're going to find a better corner prospect versus receiver. I think there is a conversation to be had. Like, we talked about like previous draft classes with like quarterbacks, for instance, in a couple of our videos. If you look at like last year's wide receiver class, how does he stack up with Rome Odunze and Marvin Harrison Jr. and Malik Neighbors
Sure.
and Brian Thomas Jr. for that matter as well? I think he's definitely still in that conversation, and there's a chance he could be the number one prospect in a class like that. But I'm not fully sold on that as much as I am as him as a corner. So I don't know if that plays a part into your evaluation as well.
Yeah, definitely. But no, I think that we've touched on all the topics we need to. I mean, this is obviously a player that is constantly in talks. Obviously, someone who's viewed as a surefire top, 3 to 5 selection. So
Yeah.
there's not a whole lot to say about it. But yeah, it's
I was going to say, do you maybe want to make a prediction at this point on, and again, I think it matters where he goes because, at the combine, obviously the Titans were asked about it. Brian Callahan, head coach, said, we view him as a corner first. Obviously, Andrew Berry, GM of the Cleveland Browns, said we view him as a receiver first. And he's definitely talked to different teams as one position or another. So do you want to give like maybe a final prediction on where we think, again, not knowing exactly what team he goes to, obviously. Do you have a prediction you think at this
yeah.
point?
I'm actually glad you asked that because I have I've thought of a prediction in my head for a while now. We talked about it at dinner actually. I think that number 1 ends up being Cam Ward. I think 2 ends up being Abdul Carter, and I think Travis Hunter goes 3 to the Giants. I think that the Giants are in a position to where obviously quarterback's a need, but this is just the best player at the spot at the end of the day. And if the board falls like that, I think that Travis Hunter ends up playing DB for the Giants and
Okay.
has packages. Obviously, again, nothing groundbreaking here.
Yeah.
But the idea of Malik Neighbors and Travis Hunter on the same side of the ball for even a select few snaps in the game
Yeah.
is a tempting thought. But
It
they
is.
obviously Giants need DB help as well, so that's kind of where I prioritize them. But do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I think, again, at the end of the day, it's certainly a conversation to be had, and I can understand certainly why teams have him as a receiver on their board, but I do think ultimately he ends up landing as a corner and then playing some package on offense. So we are in agreement on our ultimate prediction there. Team-wise, I think it's just all going to depend on where the quarterbacks go, like it always kind of
Yeah.
does. So we'll see how free agency plays out. Obviously, there's some Matt Stafford to the Giants murmurs, so we'll see. We'll definitely come out with some videos on all that. But
Definitely.
that's kind of my thoughts as of right now, as of the recording. So sounds like we're in agreement there. But
Yeah.
I think that's pretty much it. All we wanted to cover on that one. Just quick video talking about this really interesting player. So let us know what you guys think. Is Travis Hunter a corner? Is he a receiver? Could he play both sides in the NFL? Like, what do you guys think about that? So I think that's pretty much it on this one. Mike, you got anything else?
I'm good. I'm good on that. And, we got some more stuff coming out here soon. So we're excited to post some more videos and be active in the comment section and all that. So I appreciate you guys tuning in. And till next time.
See you guys. Appreciate it.